All foreign workers in Singapore are to be tested for COVID-19 to get them ready for work. The exercise, which will see more than 300,000 people screened, could last through July. The workers will also be regularly tested to ensure large clusters don't form again. 20,000 infected workers are set to be discharged by the end of the month and may resume work, with more expected to follow in June. And it comes as the infection situation in dormitories and in the community stabilises. Cheryl, go with more.
As Singapore prepares to gradually restart the economy after 1st June, one key factor needs to be met.
Our aim is to make sure that as far as possible, all migrant workers are free of infection before resuming work when their sectors gradually reopen. This will involve a differentiated approach and a combination of assessment, tests, and isolation process. This is an important strategy that will help us gradually lift the circuit breaker measures. But it would mean that the number of cases at the migrant worker dormitories will remain high for some time while we carry out aggressive testing.
For that to happen, the government plans to test all migrant workers here using a combination of the standard polymerase chain reaction or PCR tests and serological tests, which check for any past infection. To date, about 32,000 workers, or 10%, have been tested. A large majority of them are from the construction sector.
We have another remaining 90% to go. I said weeks, it could go beyond weeks. It could go through June, July. Like I said, the plan to do so is in place. We are already carrying this out. How fast or slow we can do this depends on many, many factors. If we are able to ramp up our testing capacity, which we are already doing, for example, and let's say by the end of this month, we can double our testing capacity, then certainly it helps us to speed up the process of testing every worker in the dormitories. And then, like I said, depending on the outcome of the tests, depending on whether or not you need to isolate, quarantine the workers, then again, all of these will determine the speed at which we can clear the dormitories, because it's not just testing, we are also putting in place testing and isolation.
When asked if current testing supply is sufficient, the task force said it is diversifying its procurement sources, using both locally made and imported ones. Beyond this, foreign workers, especially those in essential services, will also be tested regularly to prevent large clusters from happening again. The ministers noted that infections among foreign workers is one front of the battle. The other is in the local community, where cases have dipped to an average of 8 a day in the past week, compared to 30 a day in mid-April. In response to whether this could justify further easing of circuit breaker measures even before the end of the month, they cautioned that Singapore mustn't let its guard down.
When it comes to visiting our family members, we are studying this very carefully, because we recognize that many people would like to visit their family members. Many parents and grandparents miss their children and grandchildren. So while we would like to allow them to see one another, it's not the same when you just do virtual video calls or phone calls. I think many want to be physically connected again, and we understand the desire to do so. We have to be quite cautious in moving on such a measure, particularly when it comes to the elderly, because we all know that they are vulnerable.
Mr. Gan added that as social activities are allowed to resume, new cases may again emerge, as has been the case in other countries. If that happens, circuit breaker measures may have to be reintroduced.